Have you ever had a moment where the whole world kept spinning, but you were stuck, frozen in a memory you wished you could erase? For me, it was my sister's baby shower. The backyard was picture perfect, the kind of scene you'd find on a Pinterest board. Pale blue balloons floated lazily above long wooden tables draped in soft white linen. Little toy car centerpieces sat neatly at every corner. Laughter echoed under the afternoon sun, mixing with the sweet scent of vanilla cupcakes and freshly cut roses. It should have been perfect, but instead, it became a day I'll never forget, no matter how hard I try. My sister Claire was glowing, 8 months pregnant, wearing a flowing cream dress that hugged her belly just right. Her dark curls were pinned up, and every now and then she'd absent-mindedly brush her hand over her bump, as if calming both herself and the little boy growing inside her. I stood beside her as she opened a tiny pair of crocheted baby booties. Her eyes lit up. Her smile stretched wide. And for a heartbeat, just one, I thought maybe, just maybe, our family could get through this day without it falling apart. But then I saw my mother's face. My mom, Darlene, sharp chin, sharper tongue, stood across the yard with her arms crossed over her perfectly pressed blouse. And there it was, that smirk. The one I knew too well, the one that always appeared seconds before she dropped a verbal grenade right in the middle of someone's joy. My stomach twisted, and then she said it. She's a single mother. Probably doesn't even know who the father is. The words cut through the laughter like a blade. My hands clenched the edge of the plastic tablecloth. I stared at her, praying I'd misheard. But I hadn't. She said it casually, like it was nothing, like she was commenting on the weather. And right on cue, Aunt Carol, Mom's loyal shadow and biggest fan, chuckled beside her. "She's just collecting sympathy gifts," she added, her voice laced with fake sweetness. The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but God, it echoed. Nervous giggles, shifting eyes. Someone tried to hide a smirk behind a wine glass, and Claire, her face fell. Her hands froze over the little baby onesie she'd been holding. Her eyes dropped. She blinked too fast. Her smile broke, just for a second, before she forced it back on like a fragile mask that no longer fit. I didn't say anything. I should have. God, I wanted to. But the words caught in my throat, thick and useless. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My palms were damp. I looked around, hoping, waiting, for someone else to say something. Anything. But no one did. Why didn't I speak up? Why did I freeze? Had I gotten so used to Mom's cruelty that I'd come to accept it? Right then my son Liam sat quietly beside me, just 8 years old, but already more perceptive than most adults. He looked up at me with those wide, thoughtful eyes, his little brow furrowed, trying to make sense of the ugliness he'd just witnessed. He didn't understand the words completely, but he understood the tone, the cruelty, and I could feel it, the heat rising in my chest. Anger and shame knotted so tightly, I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. This is supposed to be a celebration, I kept thinking. Why are we letting her ruin it? But the moment passed. Claire cleared her throat, forced a thank you for a gift she hadn't even looked at. The conversation shifted. The guests moved on, but the tension hung in the air, thick, invisible, clinging to every surface like dust. My mom smiled, satisfied, like she'd put Claire right back in her place. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the most powerful voice in that yard didn't belong to her. It belonged to my son. And in just a few minutes, he was going to remind everyone what love really looks like. Liam could feel it too. He always could. Liam could feel it too. He always could. My oldest had this quiet gift, like he could read the energy in a room better than most adults ever could. He'd been watching Claire all afternoon, watching the way her hands moved a little too carefully, the way she blinked just a second too long when someone asked about the baby's father. And right beside him, my youngest, Caleb, was still curled against my side, holding his stuffed dinosaur tight, wide, innocent eyes darting between faces like even he knew something wasn't right. Neither of them said a word, but their little bodies leaned into me like they knew something was coming. And God, something was. It happened so fast. 1 minute Claire was laughing, her cheeks flushed, unwrapping a soft blue swaddle blanket from one of our old neighbors. And the next, silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just happen, it drops. My mother's voice sliced through the air like ice water down your back. She's a single mother, probably doesn't even know who the father is. It didn't just land, it shattered. The laughter around us didn't stop all at once. It halted in waves, a domino effect of realization. Some chuckled nervously. Others stared down into their drinks like maybe if they just focused hard enough on their wine glass, this moment wouldn't exist. Claire's hands stopped moving. Her shoulders, which had been relaxed for the first time in months, tensed, locked. She didn't even look up. She just stared down at the little baby item in her lap, blinking too fast. And then, Aunt Carol, always the aftershock to my mom's earthquake, added her voice like salt on an open wound. She's just collecting sympathy gifts. Honestly, we should have thrown her a fundraiser, not a shower. My stomach twisted. My pulse pounded in my throat. My fingers gripped the armrest of the cheap folding chair I was sitting on, nails digging into the plastic like maybe it could keep me from exploding. Did they think they were funny? Because nobody was laughing. Not really. There were nervous giggles, that awkward sound people make when they don't know if they should laugh or run. A few cousins shifted uncomfortably. One woman, I think she was a coworker of Claire's, had this frozen little smile like she wasn't sure if she'd just walked into a roast or a celebration. I looked at Mom, smug, calm, sipping iced tea like she hadn't just gutted her own daughter in front of a crowd. God, I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I just sat there, heart pounding, eyes burning. The words were there, sharp, hot, boiling, but they stayed trapped. My jaw clenched. My lips pressed so tightly together I thought I might draw blood. Why did I always freeze? Why couldn't I just say something? But this wasn't new. Darlene had always been like this, finding the softest part of you and pressing until it broke. When I got divorced, she told me it was probably for the best. Said I was never wife material anyway. When Liam was born, she said I looked exhausted, like a girl who got pregnant by accident. And still, I let her in. Still, I sat at her table. Still, I let my sons hug her every holiday because I wanted peace. I wanted family. I didn't want to be the one to blow everything up. But in that moment, with my sister sitting there humiliated, her hands trembling over baby gifts she could barely afford herself, I hated myself for it. I hated my silence. And I could feel it, Liam watching me. He sat quietly beside me, little legs swinging from his chair, juice cup cradled in both hands, head tilted, looking from me, to Claire, to my mom, and back again. He didn't say anything. Not yet. But there was something brewing in his eyes, a quiet kind of fire. And then I felt a tiny tug at my arm. Caleb, my sweet, gentle Caleb, only 4 years old, whispering up at me with a voice so small it broke something in my chest. Mommy, is Aunt Claire sad? I thought I might lose it right then, but before I could answer, before I could even breathe, Liam moved, quiet, deliberate. He slid off his chair, and the air shifted. Liam, I whispered, reaching for him instinctively. But he shook his head, calm, serious, in a way no 8-year-old should ever have to be. I have something to give Aunt Claire, he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the noise like a clear bell. The entire yard fell silent. Forks hovered mid-air. Conversations halted mid-sentence. All eyes turned toward him, and right behind him, without hesitation, Caleb scrambled down from his chair too, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, toddling after his big brother like he was the bravest person in the world. My sons, my heart. And I swear, in that moment, everything changed. But what I saw on my mother's face wasn't anger, it wasn't annoyance, it was shame. Real, raw, undeniable shame. For the first time in my life, Darlene, the woman who always had a comeback ready, like a loaded weapon, had nothing to say. Her eyes met mine. And for just a split second, I thought I saw her flinch. She looked like she wanted to say something, anything, but nothing came out. Not a sharp word, not a cutting remark, just silence. And maybe that's what made the moment feel so massive. Because my mother had always used words like knives. But Liam's quiet, honest love? She had no defense for that. There was nothing to mock, nothing to twist, just a little boy and his baby brother, standing in front of a crowd, speaking from a place so pure it disarmed every single person in that backyard, even her. Claire looked up through tear-soaked eyes, her smile fragile but so full of something real. "You have no idea how much I needed that," she whispered. Liam beamed. He didn't need to understand the weight of what he'd just done. He just needed to know it mattered. And it did. And right then, for the first time in hours, I stood up. I walked over to Claire, knelt beside her, resting a hand on her knee. "You're not alone," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. My voice shook, but I didn't care. "You never have been. And no one gets to shame you for choosing to be a mom." I stood tall, my heart pounding, and I looked directly at my mother. For once, she didn't meet my gaze like it was a challenge. She just sat there, still, hollow, quiet. And I finished it. "This baby is already more loved than she'll ever know. And I don't care who's uncomfortable hearing that." There it was, the moment I'd waited my whole life for. Not to destroy my mother, but to finally stop protecting her comfort at the cost of someone else's pain. And the most powerful part? I hadn't even been the one to start it. Liam had, my child, raised through love, raised through loss, raised through learning. He had reminded everyone, including me, what compassion actually looks like. The crowd began to clap, not the dramatic movie kind of clap, but a real one, soft, honest, healing. A few people came to hug Claire, someone passed her a tissue, some guests even whispered apologies. "I'm sorry I laughed earlier," one woman said quietly. "That was wrong." And just like that, the air shifted. Not forever, not completely, but enough. Enough to breathe again. Enough to hope. The baby shower ended quietly. No big speech, no dramatic confrontation, just soft conversations, people helping clean up leftovers. And Claire, holding on to that little hand-painted rattle from Liam, like it was the most precious thing she'd ever been given. And maybe it was. Mom didn't say another word that day. Not to Claire, not to me, not even to Liam or Caleb. She just sat there for a while, watching, realizing, maybe for the first time, that the room she once commanded no longer moved with her mood. Eventually, she stood up, straightened her cardigan, and left, without saying goodbye. And I won't lie, I felt relief watching her go, but there was sadness too, because deep down, I still wanted her to get it, to understand, to realize the weight her words carried, to see how they buried the people she claimed to love. I don't know if that moment ever came for her. She never apologized, but she hasn't spoken with that kind of venom since. Maybe that's something. Maybe it's not enough. But here's what I do know. That day changed me. For years, I had played the quiet role, the peacekeeper, the one who swallowed every word just to keep the family from splitting in half. But peace kept at the expense of kindness? That's not peace at all. That's silence. And silence lets damage grow in the dark. Liam, and even little Caleb, taught me that. I still think about how they stood there, small but fearless, offering love in a space where judgment had just been thrown like daggers. They didn't raise their voices. They didn't call anyone out. They just showed up, with gentleness, and it was louder than any insult could ever be. Claire is stronger now. She told me later. It wasn't just Mom's comment that hurt, it was the way everyone let it sit there, the way it echoed in the silence. But Liam's voice, and Caleb's little hand clutching his dinosaur by her side, that erased it, that gave her something our family rarely did, a moment of unconditional love. Baby Harper was born 2 months later. Full head of curls, lungs like a fire truck, and those same curious eyes Claire had when she was little. That rattle? It still sits on her dresser, right next to a framed photo of the three of them. Claire, Harper, and Liam, with Caleb squeezing in, of course, like the little shadow he always is. Liam says Harper's his cousin, but he treats her like a little sister, protective, playful, always whispering secrets into her tiny ears when he thinks no one's looking. And me, I'm still learning. Still unlearning, too. Still figuring out how to raise children with softness when I was raised in sharp corners. But I'm proud, not of being the perfect mom, because I'm far from it, but of raising boys who see the cracks and don't run from them, boys who fill them with love. You know, I used to believe that standing up for someone meant fighting, arguing, proving a point. But that day, I learned it can be as simple as a gift. A few words, a moment of heart, when everyone else goes cold. So if you ever find yourself in a room where someone is being broken down, whether with words or with silence, remember this. Sometimes, the loudest thing you can do is love someone anyway.